I've clicked onto the global tropical overview for May the 16th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, the athletic spectra are mine alone, and in making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to the local office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So we have a few systems active across the tropics today, or really two active right now. Two are going to be likely to be active in the next week. We're going to talk about mainly today Invest 92 West here on your screen right now, and potential for development in the East Pacific off the coast of Mexico as we go throughout this week. But we'll also talk about briefly at the end potential for development in the Bay of Bengal, east of India, and also the West Pacific as we go into next week. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I will also leave timestamps, I should mention that, to each of those sections so you can skip ahead to which one you want to see first. But this is Invest 92 West here in the southwestern Indian Ocean, and the system is still just sitting northeast of Madagascar. You can see the tip of the island there, just off the southern part of this map, and the system is really just not moving all too much, and it will likely not move all too much over the next few days, and will likely just barely track towards the west, staying north of Madagascar. Now, as of right now, the system is not a tropical cyclone because it is still seeing a broad circulation here. You can see the low level flow. We have a lot of southeasterly winds that really do not turn towards more westerly winds in a circular way like, say, this would be. This is more of an oval shape overall. This is more elongated still. And because of this, it's not a tropical cyclone. For a tropical cyclone, you want this to be more compact, more circular, and placed underneath the deep convection like on this burst here. And once that happens, the system will be a tropical cyclone. And that's still likely to happen, I'd say. We do have a couple lobes of convection here that is likely contributing to a little bit of elongation that we're seeing on satellite. You can see we have this main blob here to the south, northeast of the coast of Madagascar, but we also have this other convective mode here northwest of there, and this is likely causing some lower pressure up north and causing that elongation. Now, I think between these two, this southern one is more likely to win. One, because it's a lot more big. You can see the area of convection is much bigger. And also, this convective blob here is also very close to the equator. 5 degrees south is right there. And we talked about this with the West Pacific system. For tropical development, you really want something more to where this blob of convection is, rather than being close to the equator like this one is. So I think eventually this one will take precedence, and this appears to be what Matteo France says as well. You can see they're marking maybe the center part of this, but I think overall this southern part here is going to be the dominant low overall. And you can see their track on the tropical weather outlook continuing this general movement towards the west, and the high chance on that as well for development. Now, the reason for it doing so, moving slowly towards the west-northwest, is because we have this large area of high pressure draped across portions of South Africa and Madagascar. And this is forecast to sustain. Now, normally this would be just pushing a storm towards Africa, like we had with Hidea a couple weeks ago. But you can see that we have a lot of troughs in play. We have one here. This one just exited the area. And we just have now 1, 2, maybe another one as well behind this third or fourth one here, south of Africa. And this is a very progressive flow for these troughs. So these are continuously coming in and digging in south of Mauritius and La Reunion. So as a low sits here, this ridge is going to continue to push it off towards the west. But as these troughs dig in, say like this one, this is trying to push it, or pull it rather, off towards the south and east. So if you take the net flow of these, you get really not much movement at all. And you end up with a storm that just stalls here. And because none of these troughs are really staying in place for all too long with the progressive pattern, there's not really much of an opportunity for these to pull it fully southeast and take dominance over this high. And because of these troughs continuing to move out, this high pressure is going to continue to build, and this will continue to push it west to over the next week. Now, if it could be a threat to portions of Africa like Hidea was a couple weeks ago, right now it doesn't look like a very big threat. A lot of models kill it off before it actually gets there, likely because it gets a little bit too far north and too close to the equator. If it does track towards the west south enough to where it maintains itself as it gets towards the coast of Tanzania, That will likely still be a weaker tropical system, not really likely to be all too strong. Most models show this struggling, similar to what Hedaya did when it was coming right towards the coastline with dry air over the region. And you can see that here in the water vapor loop with all this dry air west of the system. So no real significant impacts anticipated with this system as we go throughout the next several days. Now off to the East Pacific, as it is hurricane season now. Let me zoom in here so you can see the full satellite imagery, but it is hurricane season. It has been hurricane season for about a day, starts on May 15th, and it will run through November 30th, and we are now looking already at our first potential system here, right on cue, in the East Pacific. You can see the reason for it. We've got the intertropical convergence zone stretching across this entire region of the tropical East Pacific, and it's very convectively active here near Mexico and Central America because we have a large area of upper level high pressure draped across this, and this is ventilating, if you will, the thunderstorm activity, and that's why you just see this being very convectively active here. Now, we also have some other features off towards Central America. We had a large complex of thunderstorms move through portions of Costa Rica yesterday, and this is now offshore. I think it's now just entangled within the monsoon trough, but that energy with that thunderstorm complex is now getting entangled in with this main bunch of convection here south of Mexico. And that is going to help aid in low pressure development here along the monsoon trough in an intertropical convergence zone. Now, the GFS model has been consistently going very aggressive on this system. You can see here the GFS in 3 or 4 days forms a tropical cyclone just like that. And by 5 days, it's actually a hurricane on the model. The GFS, I will warn here, or give a little bit of a caution here, it does have a tendency to do this. This is a common thing, common bias of the model, to where it commonly overdoes things. It's constantly aggressive with storms forming, and in reality, they don't end up becoming as strong as the GFS shows. And in fact, in the latter half of this forecast, it actually shows it becoming a major hurricane on its run. And while yes, it is true that the upper level environment is favorable, this is a 200 millibar flow plot from the GFS ensemble mean. You can see this very impressive upper level high pressure system draped right over it. And while I suppose it's within the realm of possibility, you do have to consider the time of year. It is May, and you usually don't get major hurricanes climatologically until, say, June or July in this part of the world. It's certainly not impossible, but just given what we know about the GFS and its biases, I think that the system is not likely to be developing that quick on the model. One reason being is that if you look at it, well, another reason, I suppose, alongside the GFS's aggressive bias, is just how broad all this thunderstorm activity is. So you have this entire area stretched across. I mean, this is a sizable chunk of area that needs to consolidate into a compact area of low pressure, and that's going to take a lot of time. And in some cases, we've seen a lot of storms, say, where the GFS had thought it was going to be as strong as it thinks this one is going to be, to where in reality, it just is so broad that it just stays so weak. It stays like a weaker tropical storm. And you can see that playing out maybe more on the European model, where it really does not show all too much development here, just more of a broad low that develops south of Mexico. Now, having said that, the European does have the opposite bias of the GFS, to where it does tend to go a little too weak with these storms. I think the more likely thing to happen here is that we get a mix, sort of, not mix, but something in between these two model solutions. So something, maybe a tropical storm, maybe a peak of a hurricane closer to the GFS, but also not a major hurricane, not a very rapid development like what we have in the GFS. Something in the middle of these two model solutions. And I think that's the most likely scenario to play out here. Now, of course, the most important thing is track-wise, where is it going to go once it does develop? The good news is here for those in Mexico, the upper level pattern is going to likely favor the system going out to sea. You can see here on this plot from the GFS ensemble, this is a 500 millibar height anomaly map. You can see where this red is here, we have an area of high pressure that's going to be draped across Mexico. And this is going to continue tracking whatever forms here south of Mexico off towards the west-northwest. Now, there is some possibility that, say, if the storm with this broad area, if it forms maybe on the northern end, and I talked about this a couple days ago, if it maybe forms here closer to the coast, could we get some more impacts? That is within the realm of possibility, and you can see that here in the National Hurricane Center Tropical Weather Outlook, to where they have the area of formation here getting close to land areas, and that would be a scenario where you get land impacts. Now, in terms of any landfalls, I don't think we're seeing one with this. I think it's more likely to develop here, maybe cause some rainfall for these areas, and then go out to sea, maybe peak as a hurricane out here, and then it'll die off in the middle of the Pacific, and that will be our first system of the East Pacific hurricane season. But again, something to watch, and not much rainfall in this area can cause issues. It's very mountainous terrain in this part of the world, and just one band of thunderstorm activity on a developed low could easily cause a lot of flooding issues and maybe some mudslides along here. So for those here in Central America and Mexico, just make sure you're watching the system as it progresses, and stay tuned to the National Hurricane Center for their latest outlooks on the system. Okay, so after these two systems, we're going to look towards more longer range development, and we're looking towards the North Indian Ocean and the West Pacific. We've talked about the West Pacific before, for the past week now, but we're also adding to the North Indian Ocean to the potential areas of additional formation. What's happening right now, and what's caused 92S to form, is we have an MJO burst. That's why it's a bit more convectively active here across the Indian Ocean. We have a lot more rising air over this region, so it's causing a lot more thunderstorm activity to form here. As this progresses east, it's going to be causing a very strong westerly wind burst. It looks like this one could be a real strong one near the equator along the Indian Ocean. And as I talked about in the West Pacific, these can oftentimes lead to tropical development. And I don't have the maps to show it specifically, but the westerly wind burst forecast here is actually going to be pretty strong along the northern Indian Ocean. And I would not be surprised at all to see something develop out of this. In fact, I would be more surprised if nothing develops out of this westerly wind burst in the Bay of Bengal. Now, right now, it does look like the Bay of Bengal is going to be our area for development. That's where the most cyclonic spin develops, in the southern Bay of Bengal. And from there, wherever a low pressure forms, it could go north and impact anywhere along the coastline of the Bay of Bengal or Andaman Sea. So that's something to watch for. We also are looking towards the West Pacific. Invest 93W is what it is right now. It may change by tomorrow or a few days from now. But regardless, we have that area of low pressure still sitting here by the equator. As the MJO continues progressing east, it's going to favor the system a bit more. And as it comes north, we're likely, or at least more possible, I'd say at this time, where we could possibly see some tropical development here as it comes north. And we could see a range of tracks here. We could be seeing impacts to the Philippines or the Mariana Islands. Way too uncertain right now to say for sure what happens. But for those here in the West Pacific, like I've said for the past few videos that I've made on this system, it's just important to monitor it, especially now in the Mariana Islands, as we are now looking at maybe more of a potential for the system coming your way. If it does, say, form on the eastern end of this envelope here, like on the European ensemble. There's a lot of plays, or there's a lot of impacts or features, that's the word I'm looking for, that could impact the track, and we'll go into more detail on this in time once the system is closer into range of actually forming. I'll go to the Climate Prediction Center website real quick, because I do want to show their tropical development odds here for these systems. You can see we're going to focus on week 2, which is May 22nd to May 28th as we get into the latter half of the month, and you can see that potential for development here. They've got it marked in the West Pacific and Indian Ocean. In fact, they're going high confidence on this in the Indian Ocean, greater than 60% there, and I'm inclined to agree with that given the strong westerly wind burst. So, active period in the tropics looking to come at us here after a month-long streak of really a very inactive tropics overall. And it's very important, once again, that those in the path of any storms that are forming stay tuned to official sources and most reliable sources so you know what's coming ahead of you. I'll have more videos throughout the week and into next week on all these systems, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching.